Everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Before we get into the briefing, I just wanted to start with a little bit of housekeeping. So reminders, we've had some new folks registering and hopping on. So just establishing what this is, who it's meant for, and sort of the battle rhythm now that we have an event that we have our eye on. So my name's Katie Carter. I'm the emergency response specialist for the National Weather Service. I'm technically under the Wakefield office. However, I do state briefings in support of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and the VEST, or the Virginia Emergency Support Team. However, this has gotten legs, and we have a lot of other entities, a lot of other state agencies that don't necessarily have a hand in emergency management, but have, of course, an interest in the weather altogether. And I know that this is pretty far and wide at this point. Now, typically, this is just a Monday standing state briefing that I do every Monday at 10 a.m. However, as we mentioned from the beginning, if there are events that come up, such as this, I will add events ad hoc. So that's exactly what we did. So I apologize for the last minute. There was a lot of confusion regarding the link. I sincerely apologize for that. So the one thing with GoToMeetings and GoToWebinars that's a little bit tricky is that you have to register, and then the registration provides you a unique link for each specific person. So once you get that, every single briefing that I host is going to be on your unique link. It's always the same link for you. So I would highly suggest you just add that to your own calendar, recurring every Monday. And then when you get the email saying that I'm hosting an additional one, like today, then you can just go back and click that same link, and that will get you in. Now, that being said, it is supposed to trigger a reminder email an hour before. So I got one in my inbox, but I guess a lot of folks didn't. So just look for that an hour before you are supposed to get that link. And if you aren't registered, then we'll make sure to get you registered and all of that. I have added a daily state weather briefing. So of course today, but then also Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, just due to the nature of this storm, and of course updates every single day, multiple times a day likely. So you can bet to be back here the next few days. Now, the last comment and caveat that I want to say is because my primary role is to serve VDEM and the VEST. If the VEST is activated, saying that we are in the State Emergency Operations Center for an event under a declaration of emergency, these will be put on hold because my focus and my attention has to be here in the state EOC. We don't have any word of anything like that quite yet, but just kind of keeping that in mind that Friday, we'll have to wait and see, but they will be put on hold if we do activate the VEST. All right, so let's get started. We are starting things off with the graphic that you see here on your screen. It is not a forecast. It is essentially an interesting product that the Weather Prediction Center puts out that takes a look at not only the snow amounts, but also the snow character, the snow rate. There's a lot of different meteorological factors that go into this. And then in addition to, we have some non-meteorological factors that also go into this index, such as whether it's urban or rural, whether it's, typical of the season to be seeing this amount of rain or snow or ice. So it takes into account a lot of different things, infrastructure impacts, and it tries to give us an index that gives a look at the likelihood of impact. So this is just, statewide, we have a 40 to 50% chance for a good part of the Commonwealth that we will be seeing at least major impacts. So this is of course, pretty significant. And I would venture to guess, as we get a little bit more information in the coming days, that this could even be significant impacts. But let's get to the nitty gritty. This is just very high level overview that a lot of leadership likes to look at to give a sense at a high level snapshot, what the threats are, what days. But this is set in the briefing slides that I have put in the handout section and was also sent out this morning. I'm going to skip this slide because I go into everything that is here in pretty great detail. So leading up to this storm, today through Thursday, we'll kind of have a moderating trend. It's going to be, not really anything that we're concerned about weather-wise. It'll get a little bit warmer tomorrow, and then on Thursday, we'll be in the upper 40s to low 50s. Now, Friday, at the moment, we don't have any snow in our forecast for Friday, but I will say that the signs are pointing to the potential of a little precursor event even on Friday. So look out for that. We could be seeing the potential for a burst of snowfall before the system even arrives on Friday. So that is something to keep in mind. It would be probably on the order of an inch or two. Again, that's just tossing it out there. I'm not giving a forecast quite yet because the Weather Service isn't putting numbers out there, but I just want to, not ignore the potential that we may have a little precursor event on Friday. And then Saturday is really what we are looking at to be that significant, even potentially severe winter storm, not only for us here in the Commonwealth, but areas to our north and to our south. Before we get to that, though, we are in a very cold pattern, and it is going to be leading up to this event, through it, and even beyond. So it's going to be kind of dangerous cold. Now, the one thing that is kind of nice in all of this is that any little wind is going to bring a wind chill, but luckily we aren't looking at any substantial wind gusts. We're not looking at, 30 plus mile per hour wind gusts today, or even through the event that is going to really put a number, add insult to injury with this cold. But wind chill, the minimum over the next 3 days is single digits above and even some below zero and into the teens. It'll be a little bit milder right along the immediate coastline, but when I say mild, we're still talking low 20s at best. So think about your pets and even yourselves if you are heading out really anytime over the next few days. This forecast stops Friday, but the cold does not stop Friday. It goes through the duration of the event. And now, as I mentioned, kind of off the top, getting back to the impacts, a really great chance of at least moderate impacts to most of the state, and then a pretty decent chance of major impacts, but are looking for the specifics. So unfortunately, we have everyone who, understandably, for planning purposes, wants to know what's going to happen, and we're not in the window yet to be putting out any specific forecasts. The National Weather Service will start putting out probabilities as we are now over the next day or two, and then about 72 hours out is typically when we start to see a at least deterministic forecast about what we're really thinking is going to happen. But when we look at the probabilities, I've got to say, when I was putting this briefing together this morning, I started with 3 inches. I had a slide that had 3 and 6 inches, and we just decided not to include it because it didn't even make sense. You guys, this storm is really looking like it's going to be a whopper. It's really, I would say, I don't want to say unprecedented, but very highly unusual, the fact that this far out, and we've been already keeping an eye on this for several days now, that long-range models are honing in on the potential for this significant amount of snow, and really pretty decently honing in on the timing of it being a Saturday into Sunday event too, this far out. So all of that being said, a probability of 8 inches or more of snow is, you can see here, it's 50% up to 60%, and then to Northern Virginia and Southeast Virginia, but a good chunk of the Commonwealth is smack dab in that 60, even up to 80% chance of at least 8 inches of snow. Slightly lesser amounts in Southwest Virginia, Northern Virginia, and Southeast, but still a good chunk of the Commonwealth going to be in this same situation. Now, when we bump it up to the probability of 12 inches or more, it's still pretty high probabilities. You see a lot of 40 to 50%, and getting into those orange colors over a lot of Central Virginia, into the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula, stretching back to Charlottesville, Western Albemarle County, and then farther back to the Southwest. That's a 50 to 60% shot. Now, I could have gone higher with the probabilities. I decided to hide that graphic too, just because not that there's not a potential for more than 12 inches. There certainly is, but we thought that at least today we would stick with these probabilities to give a sense that it's really looking like it's going to be a major snowstorm. Now, we have pretty high confidence that it is going to be a significant amount, but the exact amount of snow, of course, remains uncertain because we see models that have, 6 inches of snow. And then I know you've all seen them floating around the internet. Everyone that wants clicks has posted raw model output with very little explanation, but I know you've seen numbers upwards of 2 feet or more. So the guesses really run the gamut here. Now, the thing with this storm is that it's going to be prolonged. So starting Saturday and really persisting through the night Saturday into Sunday and most of our day on Sunday. So this is like a long duration event, and that's really going to add to why we're seeing these incredibly high snow totals. Getting back to the winds, as I mentioned, we're not seeing signs where we are looking at blizzard conditions, because technically the definition of a blizzard has to reach criteria of snow amounts, visibility, and also winds. And it's not quite going to get there, at least from what we're seeing yet. Now, that's not to say it couldn't change, but our winds, at least for right now, even through the duration of this event, are generally going to be in the range of about 15, maybe up to 25 miles per hour. We could be seeing gusts a little bit higher than that, but this is not a crazy system that brings in also the threat for, 30, 40, 50 upwards of that mile per hour winds. So we are very thankful because, any amount of snow, at least when we're talking about significant amounts, could add to the snow load. Temperature-wise, the next few days I mentioned are a little bit milder. So Thursday is probably the nicest day that we are going to see in quite some time. We'll see highs in the low 50s and then really tanking after that. So when we start to see things on Saturday, you'll notice that, and these are high temperatures, warmest that we will see all day on Saturday, 20s to maybe freezing. Sunday, same situation. It's still in the 20s. 20s and 30s. And then unfortunately, it's not really going to warm up, so we're not going to be seeing a lot of snow melt and to help us get out of this pattern. It's just going to remain really cold for days on end after that, which adds a layer of complexity to planning when we are talking about the potential of power outages or folks being isolated just due to the sheer amount of snow, or even if there are trees down, that kind of thing, like not due to winds, but possibly the snow load. If we see power outages, this is dangerous cold, because look at these overnight lows. We see single digits Monday morning and then Tuesday morning, and that's not even factoring in the winds. So the wind chill is going to be even colder than that. Now, that is the official briefing. I have a lot to go through on the models just to kind of bolster the what we're looking at on our side of things and give a little bit more context to probably a lot of the same things that you've been seeing floating around online. So this right here that I'm starting with is just the operational European model. So many times we hear that thrown around. Now, the European is a pretty great, reliable model, but I will say that in my experience, it tends to it will latch onto a snowstorm early, but it tends to go crazy and show those models that are like, oh my gosh, 2 feet of snow in Richmond, and then nothing, not even a single flake falls. I'm not saying this is going to be that. We're definitely seeing snow, but that is just kind of giving you a picture that the European does tend to over forecast the amount of snow. Now, what we're looking at is the Kuchera ratio is about 12 inches of snow to 1 inch liquid equivalent. And it is probably going to be more of a 12-to-1 ratio because it is so cold. So the character of this snow is going to be more of the light and fluffy variety, thankfully, because if we had a heavier, wetter snow or a warmer scenario, that would really create weight on the power lines and, the tree limbs and all of the trees. Now, just if we see 10 to 12 inches plus, even a lighter fluffy snow, that could be causing problems with weight. It just will. But the 12-to-1 ratio is putting a heck of a lot of snow. And folks, it is not just one area of the Commonwealth that's targeted. And that's going to be the problem for not only resource deployment, because it's not like the southwestern part of the state or Northern Virginia can really spare resources when we have a storm that is going to be bringing the entire Commonwealth a significant amount of snow. Southeast Virginia is probably going to be seeing the least because we do have the chance of some intrusion of sleet, maybe some wintry mix, possibly some freezing rain, because this system is going to move from the south generally and kind of scrape us if we go through time. Here we are in Friday. So this is Friday morning. There's that precursor event. We might see a little dusting, maybe up to 1 inch of snow. But then you see that it kind of skirts from the south and comes in and then spreads northward. So that's the progression from sort of southwest to northeast for this storm. As it pushes off the coast, it is expected to intensify. And because of the slow moving, long duration nature of this event, that's when we're going to be seeing the heavy snow totals, because it's just so long. We have so much moisture, and we're going to be seeing some pretty intense snowfall rates as well. Now, that was just one solution. The European, I'm actually going to save this one for last, but this is a different one here. Actually, that was the same. So this is the National Blend of Models. This is a different solution. It's not quite as egregious as the European, but it's still pretty mighty. We're looking at anywhere from, 8 to 16 inches with this output here. So the fact that models are on board with a significant snow event is pretty telling, especially the fact that we're not in the range to truly give a forecast yet. And this here, I thought was important to note because so many folks want to know, well, what's your confidence that this is going to happen? Is there any chance that this could be a total bust? No. A total bust would be this right here. And this is the 25th percentile. So if we have some folks who are not familiar with statistics, the 25th percentile is if we take all the different solutions of the European, all of the different model runs and what the outputs are. 75% of the outputs are higher than this. So this is a pretty decent low end amount of if we were to totally bust this storm for some reason, we are still looking at a lot of purple on this map, and purple starts at 6 inches. So low end, low end is 6 to 7 inches. Just putting that out there. One other thing is, so this is the same statistics, but it's the 50th percentile or the mean. We take just the average. Some of the solutions are showing 0, not many. Some are showing 2 feet, but the mean right in the middle, the average of all of the different European models shows, again, 10 plus inches across a good chunk of the Commonwealth. And I always get questions about winds. I already spoke to that, but just showing you that Friday, I'm going to step through the days. Saturday, we see wind gusts again, maybe 15 to 20, 25. Sunday, kind of the same situation, 15 to 25. So at least there's not much in the way of wind that would add insult to injury there. I know that was a whole lot of doom and gloom. We probably have questions. Actually, one more that I can probably see being asked. Earlier this morning, someone reached out to ask about the potential for coastal flooding. It is a little bit early to be talking about coastal flooding forecasts. However, just due to the wind direction and profile, so winds go counterclockwise around an area of low pressure. So we would really need easterly or northeasterly winds over the water, and really strong winds at that, of course, to get coastal flooding. And I just don't see that set up for this storm as we see it right now. So that is, knock on wood, one of the good things, at least, that I see right now, is I do not see a coastal flooding impact at the moment. That is my briefing. I know that we have a few questions popping into the chat. Okay. So what time frame would it start in the Richmond area? Okay, so we had a really big discussion this morning, the Wakefield office behind the scenes, about timing, because as emergency managers, you all are asking, when is it going to start? Now, the office did not feel specifically confident about saying exact times, like between 8 to 10 a.m. on Monday. Like, we are not that good this far out. That being said, I can give you a general range of what we're looking at. So I see the snow moving in Saturday afternoon in the western part of the state, and then reaching, I would say, the I-95 corridor in the late afternoon or evening hours on Saturday, and then lasting throughout the entire overnight Saturday and most of the day on Sunday. So that is what I see for beginning times. Now, also keep in mind that it is going to take a while for conditions to deteriorate after that, but that's the general timing of the onset of the snow that we see. One thing that I also didn't put, I don't think, enough emphasis on is the chance for a bit of sleet or a sort of wintry mix. Now, depending on the track of this system, let me get to our P-type. Okay, here we go. So you can see here how much is with this system. So the problem with even mutual aid, if we were trying to get from other states, is a lot of other states are going to be in the same boat of they need their resources too. And you can see how just south of us, you see a whole lot of pink. That is either freezing rain or a wintry mix or sleet. It's something in between that's not snow. And depending on the track of the storm, we could be seeing it if it shifts a little bit further north. You could see the intrusion of that warm nose starting to come in. Now, this latest model, or this is just the European, by the way, one of the models that we look at. This is showing that intrusion late Sunday. This is 10 o'clock on Sunday night of some of that sleet. So we could be seeing some of that before the system pushes off. And depending on how far north that system moves, we could be seeing a little bit of that. That could cut down snow totals somewhat, but not enough to completely bust our forecast. Did you say you will be giving briefs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 10 a.m.? Yes, I will be, with the caveat that if the vest activates as early as Friday, depending on how things shape up, then we will be pivoting to their battle rhythm, and I will not be doing these here, but I will do my best to send email briefings to this group. So a lot of you may have noticed that I started sending the email briefings not only to the VDM and the VEST folks who always get them, but if you are signed up for this briefing, I have been sending that on a separate distribution list. So if I'm not able to get to you live for some reason because of a VEST activation, then you'll get that email briefing. Any other questions? You're welcome, Maria.